How the Spanish Empire went broke, 1557 to 1647. Seville, 1557. The largest, richest empire the world had ever known was collapsing. A colossal fleet, laden with tons of American silver, was just docking, its hold glittering with the spoils of a continent. Yet King Philip II, ruler of an empire where the sun literally never set, was preparing to declare bankruptcy. How could an empire so fabulously wealthy, awash in an unprecedented torrent of precious metals, repeatedly find itself utterly broke? This is the paradox of the Spanish Empire, a cautionary tale of wealth mismanaged, of easy riches becoming a curse, not a blessing. By the mid-16th century, Spain stood at the zenith of its power. Its domain stretched from the Netherlands to the Philippines, from Milan to Mexico. But it was the New World that truly fueled its imperial ambitions, specifically the vast silver mines of Potosí. Discovered in 1545 in what is modern-day Bolivia, Potosí became the largest silver deposit in human history. According to historian Peter Bakewell, the sheer volume of silver extracted was staggering, transforming global commerce. Alongside the mines of Mexico, like Zacatecas, this American silver became the lifeblood of the Spanish crown. At its peak in the late 16th century, remittances from the Americas, primarily silver, accounted for roughly 25% of Philip II's total royal revenue, as documented by economic historian Earl J. Hamilton. This immense influx of silver, however, set in motion a profound economic transformation known as the price revolution. Across Europe, prices for goods and services rose dramatically, averaging around 6 times over 150 years, a modest 1.2% compound annual growth by modern standards, but revolutionary for its time. Spain, being the primary recipient of the silver, experienced this inflation most acutely. As the Spanish arbitrista Martín González de Cellorigo observed around 1600, more gold and silver did not make Spain richer, only more expensive. Too much money, in this case silver, was chasing the same limited supply of goods. This abundance of cheap silver created a structural economic disease, later termed the Dutch disease by economists. Spain's once thriving domestic industries, particularly its renowned wool and silk textiles, began to lose their competitive edge. The flood of silver artificially strengthened the Spanish currency, making Spanish goods more expensive for foreign buyers and foreign imports cheaper for Spaniards. Consequently, Spanish consumers and merchants found it more economical to purchase textiles, grain, and manufactured goods from England, the Netherlands, and France. The very silver intended to enrich Spain instead flowed out to pay for imports, enriching its rivals and undermining its own productive capacity. Foreign merchants, Genoese bankers, Dutch traders, German financiers increasingly controlled Spain's commerce and financial networks, siphoning off profits. Spain's imperial project was inherently a military one, and this created an insatiable demand for funds. The crown was engaged in almost continuous warfare: the 80 Years' War against the rebellious Netherlands, the Anglo-Spanish War, skirmishes in Italy, and later the devastating 30 Years' War. The cost of maintaining vast armies, equipping powerful navies like the Armada, and constructing elaborate fortifications stretched the empire's finances to breaking point. Philip II, a devout Catholic monarch, believed it was his divine duty to defend the faith against Protestantism and the Ottoman Empire, regardless of the cost. The modern historian Geoffrey Parker extensively details the prohibitive expense of these military endeavors. The crown relied heavily on a complex system of debt. Long-term bonds, known as juros, which paid regular interest, and short-term high-interest loans, called asientos, from powerful banking families, especially the Genoese. This reliance on debt became a vicious cycle. As the empire's expenses soared, so did its borrowing. The fiscal burden disproportionately fell upon the common people and merchants. The privileged nobility and clergy were largely exempt from taxes, further narrowing the tax base and exacerbating social inequalities. Spain's great nobles, often detached from productive enterprise, lived lives of leisure, drawing revenues from their estates without contributing much to the nation's economic engine. Compounding this, the alcabala, a sales tax of around 10% on commercial transactions, stifled internal trade and discouraged entrepreneurship. As the economic historian Fernand Braudel argued, such a tax system, combined with inflation and a lack of investment in productive sectors, crippled Spain's ability to compete. The unsustainable financial model led to repeated, dramatic bankruptcies. Under Philip II alone, the Spanish crown declared major state bankruptcies in 1557, 1560, 1575, and 1596. Each declaration meant the crown suspended payments on its debts, renegotiating terms with infuriated bankers and investors, often at punitive rates. These financial crises did not end with Philip II. His successors, Philip III and Philip IV, faced similar predicaments, declaring bankruptcies in 1607, 1627, and 1647. These repeated defaults had devastating consequences. Unpaid armies would mutiny, creating chaos and weakening Spain's military effectiveness. Provinces and colonies, witnessing the crown's financial instability, grew increasingly restive and rebellious, sensing weakness. In a desperate attempt to plug the gaping holes in its budget, the Spanish government in the 17th century resorted to debasing its currency. They began issuing vast quantities of vellón, copper coinage with a drastically reduced silver content, or even none at all. This act, a classic symptom of a state in financial distress, only served to exacerbate the existing inflation and further erode public trust in the currency. As more vellón flooded the market, its value plummeted and prices for goods soared, creating a vicious cycle of economic instability and hardship for ordinary Spaniards. Simultaneously, the lifeline of American silver, though still substantial, began to dwindle. By the late 16th and early 17th centuries, silver remittances from the New World fell by half over a span of about 15 years due to declining ore grades and labor shortages. At the same time, the cost of defending the now vast and vulnerable colonial empire continued to rise. The empire that had once seemed invincible was now struggling to sustain itself. The cumulative effect of economic mismanagement, incessant warfare, a flawed tax system, and declining silver flows finally brought Spain to its knees. The formal recognition of Spain's decline as the dominant world power arrived with the Peace of Westphalia in 1648. This landmark treaty, ending the 30 Years' War, formally acknowledged the independence of the Dutch Republic and Portugal, significant blows to Spanish prestige and power. The Spanish Empire, though still vast, had lost its economic dynamism and political hegemony. The very treasure that had promised endless wealth had, through a confluence of factors, become its undoing. The story of the Spanish Empire's repeated bankruptcies offers a profound lesson. Easy wealth, especially from a single source, can be a curse if not transformed into productive capacity. The silver of Potosí and Mexico, rather than fostering industrial growth and innovation, merely paid for wars and imported goods, creating a consumer economy reliant on external production. Spain, the world's richest empire, failed to convert its immense financial capital into durable economic power, leading to its eventual decline. This economic pattern, observed by the arbitristas of the time and later analyzed by historians like Mauricio Drelichman, is a stark example of the resource curse in action. If you found this exploration of imperial finance and economic decline compelling, please like this video, subscribe to Money and Empires for more deep dives into the rise and fall of great powers, and leave a comment below telling us which empire's economic fate you'd like us to explore next. Join us next time as we unravel another intricate chapter in the history of wealth and power.